What we do know has raised a lot of disturbing questions, including how did armed hijackers make it through airport security, and why didn't spy agencies know about the impending attacks? The CBC's Brian Stewart has that story.
There are several potential lines of defense against hijacking. Each was breached yesterday with apparent ease. The first line would have been advance intelligence by agencies like the CIA or Canada's own CSIS intelligence. For at least a week, airlines were generally warned to be on a heightened state of alert. But for reasons still unknown, there was a massive failure of U.S. and international intelligence to pinpoint the threat. Similar intelligence failures were blamed in the bombings of Lockerbie and of Air India.
The 11th of September 2001 will go down as a day of infamy politically, nationally, obviously, in the United States, but also for the aviation security industry. It's a day that everything changed.
In London, Philip Baum is former head of TWA Security in Europe and now editor of Aviation Security International.
First and foremost line was that the intelligence system actually failed. We've relied in the past on intelligence, accurate intelligence, to prevent terrorist acts taking place.
But the second line of defense, airport security, also failed. In the Tuesday morning crush of passengers, the terrorists moved through the airport checks without hindrance. Whatever weapons they had were undetected. Whatever nervousness they showed went unnoticed.
Just outraged at it. I felt the same sense of rage at the terrorists who shot down my student in Air India 182. I knew this was going to happen. I hoped it wouldn't happen. I didn't want it to be true.
Peter Sinjan in Winnipeg is a leading international expert on combating air terrorism, the author of studies on airport security. He has repeatedly warned that North American airports are dangerously lax.
Governments are not taking responsibility for airports, especially governments in Canada. And so the result is that responsibility is privatized. Responsibility is given to airport directors, airport administrations, and airlines.
Sinjan is not alone. For years, Europeans have been particularly critical of U.S. and Canadian airport security.
There are some basic security measures that simply aren't in place. Passengers can walk to the gate areas together with their loved ones, together with the taxi drivers, the meeters and greeters. Anybody can basically go to the gate areas. In Europe, it's only ticketed passengers that can go to the gates, which means that there's an added pressure on the security guards because they've got that many more people to screen. They've delegated responsibility to the airlines, who have in turn delegated responsibility to contract screening companies who employ minimum wage employees.
Reports today suggesting some hijackers paid cash for one-way tickets, surely a potential red flag, raises even more questions about the training of airport personnel. Some critics believe our security puts too much emphasis on machines and computers, not enough on well-trained psychological screening of a kind common in some other countries.
These people who committed suicide against these, yesterday in this episode, are people who were in a high state of tension and emotion. And if you design an airport in the right way, you can see people who are behaving like this. There's a distinction between people who are frightened and people who are really high, whether on drugs or on fear, because they're going to hijack a plane. You can tell these characteristics. You can get down to 1% or 2% of the traveling public and know where the dangerous people are going to be. And you've got to develop a security system which uses this knowledge to good advantage for the public safety.
Should intelligence and ground security fail, once airborne, an airline's third and last line of defense is the cockpit itself. Until now, cockpits have been easily stormed, or pilots have submitted to terrorist demands to save cabin crew or passengers from attack. It was not always so. 30 years ago, American sky marshals were armed to fight off hijackers.
We need to look at the possible resurrection of the Sky Marshal program in its entirety. In other words, possibly having Sky Marshals on each and every flight.
There are also suggestions cockpits could be sealed behind thick doors.
They've got to have a really sturdy, strong door. And they don't have strong doors. Most of the makes of airplanes that we have in commercial use now have very weak, flimsy doors. I've been really struck by that. They wouldn't keep anybody out.
Traditionally, aviation security has been seen as a way of shielding the passengers and crew and aircraft of one flight. Preventing them being taken to an unwanted destination or preventing them being blown up in a terrorist act. Aviation security is a lot more than that. It's actually preventing war. Not only the 267 people that died yesterday and all the people on the ground, the thousands possibly that died on the ground, but this could lead to war.
Investigators have barely begun to unravel all the security failures, but already whatever innocence may have existed in the air industry has been shattered. It's one of the many ways life changed yesterday. Now, tighter controls, more delays, and much more scrutiny is likely to become a permanent part of our air travel in future. For The National, I'm Brian Stewart in Winnipeg.